She arrived at the ranch with nothing but a small suitcase and the ache of a life that hadn't gone the way she dreamed. Lila had lost her mother only 3 months earlier, and the silence that followed her everywhere felt heavier than any luggage she could carry. She had taken the cooking job out of desperation, hoping that the endless horizon might quiet the storm inside her. When she stepped onto the dusty land, she felt like a stranger stepping into someone else's story, unaware that destiny was waiting, watching her from the shadows of the barns. The Cowboys didn't hide their curiosity when she walked toward the lodge kitchen, her braid loose from the long bus ride. She forced a fragile smile, pretending confidence she didn't feel. They greeted her kindly, but she sensed the loneliness behind their easy jokes. These men worked hard, lived harder, and rarely spoke of the burdens they carried. Lila wondered if she'd fit into such a world, especially when she was still learning how to stand after her own world had collapsed. But she needed this job. She needed a place where her heart could breathe. She began cooking before sunrise, trying to prove her worth. The clang of pots and the warmth of the stove became her new heartbeat, a rhythm she clung to so she wouldn't drown in memories. She poured her grief into every stew, every loaf of bread, every pan she scrubbed clean. The Cowboys praised her cooking, but one man watched her with quieter eyes, eyes she hadn't yet noticed. He'd slip in early, offering to carry heavy sacks or help chop vegetables, speaking little but observing everything. His name was Cole, another cowboy, or so she thought. He carried himself with an easy calm, but his silence felt warm rather than distant. Every time he walked into the kitchen, Lila felt a strange flutter she tried to ignore. She didn't want to feel anything. Feelings hurt. Feelings had cost her more than she wanted to remember. Yet whenever his boots approached the doorway, her breath caught just a little, and she hated that she liked it. One evening, while preparing dinner, she accidentally burned her hand on a hot skillet. She gasped and jerked back, blinking away tears from the sting. Before she could reach for cold water, Cole was already there, gently guiding her wrist under the faucet. His touch was careful, almost hesitant, as if he feared breaking something delicate. She looked up at him, and for the first time their eyes met and held. There was a softness there she didn't expect, something that made her throat tighten painfully. "You don't have to do everything alone," he murmured, his voice low and steady. The words hit her harder than the burn. She'd spent months surviving alone, eating alone, grieving alone, sleeping alone, pretending she didn't need anyone. Hearing someone say she didn't have to be alone felt like an invitation her heart wasn't ready for. She pulled her hand back gently, whispering thanks, trying not to reveal how deeply the moment shook her. Days blended into weeks, and the ranch started to feel less like a workplace and more like a refuge. The open sky gave her room to breathe, the golden fields softened her heartbreak, the long evenings on the porch reminded her that the world still had quiet beauty left. And she began to laugh again. Small laughs at first, then real ones, especially when Cole was nearby. He had a way of making her feel seen without making her feel exposed. But even as warmth returned to her life, she sensed a hidden weight in Cole's eyes. He often stared at the land with a look she couldn't read, part pride, part burden. When the other cowboys talked freely about their families or pasts, Cole always fell silent. Something about him didn't fit the rough, carefree ranch hand image the others carried so easily. The more she noticed him, the more she felt there was a truth quietly breathing beneath his every gesture. One stormy evening, when rain hammered the roof and lightning split the sky, Cole appeared in the kitchen drenched from head to toe. She rushed to hand him a towel, scolding him for staying outside. He laughed softly, a sound she rarely heard from him, and suddenly the room felt warmer despite the cold weather. While he dried off, she found herself staring at him, a man who worked beside the others but somehow stood apart. She wondered what he wasn't telling her. Cole surprised her by opening up that night just a little. He told her he wasn't always a ranch hand. He said he knew this land better than any cowboy here, that he had grown up watching his father work every inch of it. But before she could ask more, he stopped himself, brushing it away with a quiet smile. Lila didn't push, but her curiosity grew sharper. She sensed a story, maybe a painful one, hiding behind his gentle eyes and guarded silence. As the night deepened, they sat across from each other at the long wooden table, listening to the storm's fading rumble. She shared memories of her mother, revealing more than she expected. Cole didn't offer advice or empty comfort, he simply listened, truly listened, and his presence alone softened the ache in her chest. For the first time since her mother's passing, she felt safe letting someone see the cracks inside her. Their connection deepened in small, quiet moments, shared smiles, lingering glances, accidental touches that sparked warmth neither dared mention. The other cowboys began teasing her lightly about the silent one, always hanging around the kitchen. Lila laughed it off, but inside, her heart felt dangerously alive again. And that scared her, because she knew what losing love felt like, and she wasn't sure she could survive it twice. One morning, she overheard two cowboys talking near the barn. They mentioned a rumor about the ranch changing hands soon, about a new owner watching everything from the background. Lila brushed the gossip aside, but something in their tone unsettled her. She wondered if it had anything to do with Cole, who watched her with a mix of longing and restraint she didn't understand. Why did it feel like he wanted to tell her something and hold back at the same time? As autumn winds cooled the evenings, Cole became even more protective of her, walking her back to the lodge after dark, checking the kitchen late at night, making sure she ate after working too long. She told herself it was just kindness. She told herself not to read into it. But the truth was her heart had already begun leaning toward him, inch by inch, in ways she couldn't undo. She didn't realize the twist waiting ahead, a truth that would shake everything she thought she knew. One night, when Lila stepped outside to take in the quiet sky, she saw Cole standing alone near the fence line, staring at the moonlit fields. Something in his posture, tension mixed with sorrow, pulled her toward him. When she approached, he didn't turn. Instead, he spoke into the wind, his voice barely above a whisper, "There's something you should know. Something I should have told you the day you arrived." Her heartbeat quickened. She felt the first real crack in the world she'd begun rebuilding. And in that moment, standing under the pale moonlight, Lila sensed the truth was about to change everything. The wind carried his words away, leaving her with only the tremble in his breath. Lila stepped closer, unsure whether she should touch him. Cole finally turned, and the look in his eyes wasn't cold or distant, it was pleading. He confessed that he wasn't just one of the cowboys working the land. His family had owned this ranch for generations, but after a bitter inheritance dispute, he had chosen to work among his own men anonymously to see who truly cared for the ranch and who cared only for the owner. Lila felt the ground shift beneath her feet, not because he was wealthy, but because he had hidden a truth that changed how she understood every moment between them. She didn't know what to say. Her chest tightened with a complicated mix of hurt and understanding. Cole reached for her hand, hesitating at the last second as if he feared she'd pull away. He said he hadn't told her because she was different from anyone he'd ever met. She didn't look at him with the expectations people had for an heir. She treated him like a man, not a name. He was terrified that revealing himself would destroy the fragile trust forming between them. The storm of vulnerability in his voice made her heart twist painfully. Lila stepped back, overwhelmed. She wasn't angry because he owned the land. She was hurt because she had been honest with him from the first day, letting him see her grief and fears, while he hid such a massive truth. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to protect the fragile calm she had built here. Cole didn't chase her. He stood in silence, letting her walk away, his expression carrying the weight of every unspoken wish. The night air was cold, but the distance between them felt colder. The following days were painfully quiet. Cole kept his distance, respecting her space, though she caught him watching her with a sorrow that nearly broke her resolve. The other cowboys sensed a shift but didn't know the cause. Lila returned to her work, pouring her confusion into her cooking just as she once poured her grief. Yet every time she passed the window overlooking the fields, her eyes instinctively searched for Cole's worn hat, for the shape of him among the cattle, for the steady presence she had grown used to. One evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the horizon into a smear of gold, she found a note tucked beneath a bowl on the kitchen counter. Cole's handwriting was simple, almost shy. He wrote that he understood why she might never forgive him, but he wanted her to know that every moment with her had been real. He didn't ask for love, or even forgiveness. He simply asked her to meet him by the old oak tree at dusk if her heart had even the smallest space left for him in it. The note trembled in her fingers as she read it again and again. The old oak tree stood at the edge of the ranch, its branches wide like open arms. Lila walked toward it slowly, unsure whether she was doing the right thing. She replayed every moment she had shared with Cole, the tenderness in his touch when he helped her, the quiet warmth of his presence, the way he listened like her words mattered. She realized the man she had grown close to wasn't defined by the land he owned, but by the gentleness in his heart. And she knew she couldn't turn her back on something so rare. Cole was already there, waiting beneath the tree, shoulders tense as if bracing for heartbreak. When he saw her approach, hope flickered in his eyes, soft and painfully vulnerable. Lila took a breath and told him she wasn't angry about who he was. She was hurt because she had trusted him fully, and she wished he had trusted her the same way. Cole moved toward her slowly, the way a man approaches something precious he fears might shatter. He promised her he would never hide behind silence again. The distance between them dissolved, but not in a sudden rush. It softened gradually, like the evening light fading into dusk. Cole reached for her hand, this time with no hesitation, and she let him hold it. The warmth of his palm grounded her, reminding her that trust wasn't built in a day, it grew through honesty and vulnerability. He told her that he wanted her in his life not because she cooked for the ranch, but because she brought light to a land that had grown lonely without him even noticing. They walked together beneath the oak branches, letting the calm settle over them. Cole spoke about the responsibilities he carried, the burdens that came with owning the ranch, and how he had feared someone would see the inheritance instead of the man. Lila admitted she had feared closeness too, afraid to lose anyone again after so much loss. They realized they were both hiding, in different ways, for different reasons. And that fragile honesty formed the beginning of something deeper than either expected. The ranch began to feel different after that night. The tension between them melted into a shy but growing affection. Cole would appear in the kitchen early mornings, not to hide anything, but simply to be near her. Lila found herself laughing again, letting her walls drop piece by piece. The Cowboys started teasing them openly now, but instead of embarrassment, her heart felt warm each time Cole squeezed her hand or brushed her shoulder with a gentle touch that spoke louder than words. One evening, while the sun dipped behind the hills, Cole led her to a quiet part of the land she had never seen. The fields glowed like molten amber. He told her he wanted to show her the place where he made every important decision in his life. Then he told her that meeting her was the decision he was most grateful for. His voice carried both strength and tremor, as if the admission itself was a leap. Lila felt something shift inside her, something that settled not painfully but beautifully. Cole told her he didn't want her to just work on the ranch, he wanted her to belong here, in whatever way her heart allowed. Not as his cook, not as a guest, but as someone who made the land feel alive again. The words wrapped around her heart gently but firmly, giving her the reassurance she didn't know she had been craving. She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his chest, and he held her with the kind of embrace that felt like a long-awaited homecoming. Their love didn't burst into existence. It grew slowly, tenderly, through choices made every morning and every quiet night. As winter approached, Lila realized she no longer feared the future. She felt anchored, by the land, by the life she was building, and by the man who had once stood in silence watching her with a heart full of unspoken truths. The world didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt steady. When the first snow touched the fields, Cole surprised her with a simple confession whispered into her hair, that he couldn't imagine a life without her. Lila's breath caught, not from fear this time but from the warmth blooming in her chest. She lifted her face to him, and in that soft winter light, they sealed their future together in a kiss that wasn't dramatic or wild. It was gentle, certain, and full of promise. And so the ranch became more than a workplace. It became a home built from honesty, healing, and a love that grew from quiet moments into something strong enough to last. Lila found her peace not by escaping her past, but by allowing her heart to open again. Cole found his joy not in the inheritance of land, but in the woman who taught him that love, when trusted, can reshape an entire life. Their story didn't end with fireworks, it ended with something better. Two hearts finding steadiness in each other, and a future waiting to bloom under the wide, endless sky.